Welcome back, everybody, to another edition of Plane Talk. Today I want to follow up on a little bit of chip breaker anatomy and just to go back into the topic of setting the chip breaker. So typically your chip breaker is a softer steel than your cutting iron or your blade. If you were to lay your chip breaker down on a flat surface, it shouldn't rock. If anything, you might have a little bit of a concave towards the bottom, and it acts as a little bit as a spring, but flat is good. Good place to start. Now, the convex section here, or the hump, is part of the mechanism to hold the chip breaker down tight to the blade. This area here under the chip breaker needs to be flattened to mate with the blade so that there is no light underneath the front of the chip breaker. Now, I don't know if you'll be able to see this, but the concept is that the front edge, the leading edge of the chip breaker, is tighter than the back edge. There should be like a little bit of a gap there. So that when it clamps down, only the front edge is making full contact. So that's the basic geometry. We did also in past videos talk about smoothing this over when you're fitting your cap iron. So, you put your cap iron, or chip breaker as the common name is, on your blade, and you bring it up towards the cutting edge. Now here's where it gets confusing. If I were to leave this back a 1/4 of an inch, the chip breaker becomes useless as a chip breaker. It will work to advance your blade up and down. You bring it forward to about 1/8 of an inch, and at that point, depending on the thickness of your shaving, it may start breaking chips. If it's a thick 3, 4, 5,000th hogging cut, it may start breaking chips. So the closer you go, the finer the cut. If you try to take a 4 or 5,000ths of an inch cut with the chip breaker set so tight that you barely can see the light of reflecting off the front of the cutting edge, you just won't get a cut. You'll foul your mouse. So, further back, thicker cut. Further forward, thinner cut. The ultimate finest cuts, you're going to be getting close and closer and closer until you barely can't get any closer. If you go too close, your plane will tell you it will not cut. It will just bog up, okay? And what might happen is it may actually, depending on how you have your chip breaker fitted, it may force chips under here. And you have to take it all apart, clean, put it back together again. So, I don't know if that helps clarify it for some people, but for general purpose work, a lot of times I'll just have that at about a 1/16 of an inch. I don't really, if it's wood that's easy to plane, the chip breaker doesn't have to be that close. You can get faster cuts, you can get thicker cuts, you're good to go. Harder woods, dense woods, woods with figure, you got to go really, really tight, really, really close. Okay, onwards. Today, the wood du jour is bird's eye maple. Now, I've been planing away at this section here because it came from the mill skip dressed, which means they ran it through their thickness planer. And as you can see, I pencil marked in a chip that was here. And there were a few others. There was one here. A few others of these eyes had chipped out, and I marked with a pencil to work through them. What it looked like originally was more like this up here, rough, all torn out. That's why I prefer to get my wood rough sawn, especially figured woods, because then I can sneak up on them and not cause tear out. So here's a Stanley number 5 set up with a fine cut chip breaker right up close, and you'll see we'll be getting those accordion type shavings. Okay? See that? But I'm not getting any tear out. The bird's eyes are not tearing out any more than they have from the mill. You see that? So, another one of the questions was, Walter, you're always edge planing, jointing a board. Well, that's because it's easy to do. I put it in a vise and I show it to you. But what about face planing? Okay. And here's another interesting topic about bird's eye. And right now I'm heart side up, I believe. Yep. The heart side up, that would make this the sapwood side, or the outside of the tree. But you want to make sure your grain is going in this direction, okay? So that you're not planing against the grain. When you're flat planing, you want to put a couple lines across your board to see what your progress is like. Typically, I surface plane mostly with the number 5 or larger plane. Just at the last moment, if I need to, I'll take a smoother out. The typical handhold is a typical plane on the tote, and I tuck my pinky finger in under the knob lightly, and that rolls my palm over the top of it. These 3 fingers are kind of not doing a thing. And this is mainly for steering and to aid in tilting the plane. Why do we tilt the plane? The return stroke. You can do a lot of things with the return stroke. You can tilt the plane and pull back. You can lift the plane and pull back. Or you can lift the tail and pull back. You can, of course, lift the whole plane and go back. But to save time and energy, a lot of times, most cabinet makers will tilt it slightly. So you work from either the left to the right, or the right to the left. And if your pencil lines don't disappear, just go back over that area. Okay? That's good right there. And then you proceed right across. Now I'm approaching this at a 90-degree angle with the plane. Sometimes, in order to convince the wood to behave, you might need to skew the plane, like this. Skew the plane. Okay? Took my hand away just to show you. Or you go this way. That gives you more of a shear cut. So, as you can see, I'm not getting any tear out. Bird's eyes are kind of troublesome in so much, even though you're not getting tear out, there is a fuzziness because basically they're just grain that's gone like this. So once you're done planing, you can hit it lightly with either a card scraper or some fine 220 sandpaper just before smoothing. Now, here's the other weapon of choice, the Lie-Nielsen 62. Once again, you have to have some sort of registration marks to tell you where you've been. So you remember, we were getting these accordion-like shavings from that plane because it had the tightly set chip breaker bunching up those fibers and curling them. I have my old Lie-Nielsen blade in here, which I have honed to 50 degrees. That gives me an effective cutting angle of 62 degrees. It's a high angle cut. See the difference in the shaving? It's shaving more like a regular plane. However, it is harder to push. So once again, you go across the whole plane, the whole board, see where we're hitting, where we're not. Repeat it until all your pencil lines are gone. Now, surface texture. I would say the surface texture is better with the high angle blade and the Lie-Nielsen 62. That's a gnarly one right there. There's another one right there. You will not get rid of that. What you will do is create a perfectly smooth surface which is ready for finishing. Okay, lift the plane if you want, all the way like this. Mind you, this hand is not putting down pressure once the knob's over the front of the plane, front of the board. See, I can take it completely off. So you see the difference in the shaving, but they basically do the same thing. Need a little more work back here. Got a little bit of a hollow back here. But that's basically it, everyone. See how I have that blade set up? It's feathered out, it's cambered a little bit, so it's feathered out to one side and the other. I'm taking an ultra thin cut. I probably could go a little thinner. Let's try. Yep, as you can hear, I'm breathing a little hard. It will give you a workout. But that's okay. That's what we do. We're woodworkers. There we go. That's taking, oh wow, wish you could feel that. That's taking an ultra fine cut. So that's bird's eye hard rock maple. Face planing. Heartwood side. First with a Stanley number 5, then with the Lie-Nielsen 62. High angle, hone, 50 degrees. And there you go. Wow. I'm almost gone here with that little chip out. So, any questions? Hope I helped. One other thing about bird's eye. Bird's eye figure is visible mostly in the face grain. Edge grain, it loses something. See face grain? See how all these knots are torn out? That's why I don't like getting wood that's been pre-planed. They all have to go away. So I'm going to lose a good 1/16 or more on this side. Okay? but the edge grain can sometimes become what almost looks like curly maple, okay? So when you're designing something, take that into consideration. I like bird's eye in drawer fronts, in box lids. I very rarely will put any sort of molded edge on it because of the grain. I like it as an inset. In turnings, if I take a piece like this, I can make a very fancy plate out of it. But you have to be careful because you lose a lot of that beautiful grain. Boy, I really wish you could feel this. That number 62 does a great job on that. I'm not saying that you can't get a halfway decent finish, okay, with your regular Stanley. If you don't have a 62 and you don't have the budget for one, that's fine. Learn to sharpen your blade as sharp as you dare. Set the chip breaker right tight. See that? That's the kind of shaving you should be getting. Okay? Set it to cut as thin as you can and still get a shaving. Mind you, I haven't lubricated this one in a bit. That's better. You do have to put a little more down pressure to keep it engaged. But it's not much. Just like I said, these fingers aren't doing much. And don't wear out your blade by pulling it back over it. Tilt it, lift it, let the toe drag, let the heel drag, but don't let the full sole drag. Well, that's it for today. I hope this helps somebody. I know it's giving me a workout. Some people say I need one. Go out in your shop. Make some shavings. Walter out.